Hey guys, Will here. So shortly after shooting the OS Xbox Pro work log video, I shot this little video that was kind of meant to accompany it, where I talk about kind of some of the ideas I had and why I chose some of the components I did. I ended up kind of just dropping it. It was kind of a weird style, but I realized that it does answer a lot of people's questions that I'm still getting asked, and lets you see it running a little bit, as well as, again, you hear my thoughts on why I chose some of the components I did and where I came from when I was building it. So I just finally got around to editing it, and so it's a little bit late, but for those of you who are still interested, here is the OS Xbox Pro feature video thing. The OS Xbox Pro is a computer that I designed and built primarily to run multiple operating systems, particularly Apple OS X, in order to use Final Cut Pro at home. So right now it boots Windows 7, Ubuntu, and also OS X. As you could probably tell, this originally started out as a classic Xbox or an Xbox development kit, which is something that I found at a local computer recycling place. And in addition to gutting out all the old components and making it fit PC hardware, I did some changes to the case to incorporate some design elements that are commonly found in Apple computers, including the steel mesh that you see here, and of course the glowing Apple shape there on the top where the Xbox Jewel used to be. So as you can see from the back here, it looks like a pretty typical low-profile computer. You got your graphics card for monitor connectors, and I added in a FireWire card there for my HDV camera, as well as all your other audio connectors, power connectors, exhaust fans there. And in the front, I've also taken the controller ports, which were for the 4 Xbox controllers, and repurposed them for 2 USB controllers, as well as another FireWire header and a eSATA header. So despite its small size, this is actually a pretty powerful computer. The motherboard I selected just barely fit the footprint of the case, and it's powered by an Intel Q9550S, which is their energy efficient line of quad-core processors. We also have a GeForce 9800 GT, 8 gigabytes buried deep down here of DDR3 memory, and for the hard drives there are 2 160 gigabyte 2.5-inch hard drives for Windows 7 and OS X, and there is a third 16 gigabyte solid-state drive here for running Ubuntu, and there are also 2 500 gigabyte 7200 RPM 2.5-inch hard drives driven through this Highpoint RAID card in RAID 0 for running when I'm using Final Cut Pro, or I also have a smaller partition in there so I can use it for editing in Windows 7 as well. To make the booting in OS X possible, I have this EFiX USB dongle, which it's just a little device that plugs right into one of the USB headers. In this case, I have it running through a cable. And in the BIOS, all you do is you boot through this device as if this were a hard drive, and that brings up a boot screen, which I can then select which operating system, either Ubuntu, Windows 7, or OS X I want to boot, and it allows installing and booting through OS X. To power this whole system, there is a 300-watt TFX micro power supply, which was one of the few power supplies that would possibly fit in this without going to a smaller motherboard, which I don't think there was one that had all the components that I wanted on it. So this is one of the reasons why I chose the lower power, slightly more expensive Q9550S. Obviously, there's a pretty power-hungry graphics card in here too. So I think it's a 500-watt minimum recommended power supply. So decided to go with that low power processor, and everything's working out okay. But the good thing about that also is that processor is only a 65-watt processor, so that allowed me to get much smaller cooler on here, which is another thing I needed space-wise. It's a zero-therm atom, very low-profile cooler, and everything's running cool, and everything is being powered okay with this setup. So why don't I go ahead and put this back together, and I can boot it up for you. And if I go ahead and power it on, and I'll just bring you into the BIOS here to show you what's going on to make it boot all the operating systems. So if we scroll down to the advanced BIOS features here, and we look at it's set to boot to the first hard disk, and in hard disk boot priority, you can see right here as number 1, USB hard drive, the EFiX USB adapter that I showed you in there earlier is being registered as a hard drive, and it's going to boot from that. And so let's go ahead and restart it. Loading, please wait. And here we have the EFiX boot screens. As you can see, it's detecting the 3 hard drives with the installed operating system on it. Here we have the Linux Ubuntu drive, which you can see a little penguin there, the Windows drive, and of course the OS X drive. By default, it's set at a countdown once it starts without touching anything to boot from the last operating system you had loaded up. So let's go ahead and start OS X. All right, and so here we have your typical OS X. You can see the little dock thing that everybody's so amazed with. You can use it for just about anything you would do a normal Mac Pro or any other Apple system. Here I have a little Final Cut Pro project that I've started just to mess around with Final Cut Pro a little bit. One of the primary reasons that I designed this system. So here's some of the footage that I shot of this computer build. That's it. So now I have a working computer running OS X, and I can use it for Final Cut Pro or just about anything else. So everything's so much easier. I'm not getting any viruses. And here we have Ubuntu. So I never really got into any form of Linux, so I figured with this system, the really convenient booting option, I thought I would try this out, and you can see it's got a couple extra desktop effects. Haven't explored it too much, but it just loads up just like the others. This one's on the 16 gigabyte hard drive. It's not a very big install, but everything here is working as well. And lastly, why don't we go ahead and boot up to Windows 7. So now we're into Windows as well, which makes this a properly useful computer. Haven't really installed anything yet, but I'll probably install a copy of Adobe Premiere for editing through a PC, which is my preferred application for that. So the entire project probably was done over the course of about 3 months. I probably only spent about 35 to 40 hours on it, though. A lot of time was waiting for some cables or paint drying, or a lot of time went into the making of the video too, having to reposition the camera every time after I do a couple shots. And the retail cost of the parts was about $1,500. So it was a pretty cheap project. That was about a third the cost of a Mac Pro system that I kind of customized with comparable specs, things like the RAID setup and that sort of thing. So it was a pretty good deal, and it's working great so far. I haven't had too much time to use it, but no overheating problems like a lot of people are mentioning. So yeah, it's just a great little secondary system that I'll probably use just as much as a PC, and Linux probably even more than I use it for OS X. But if you guys want some more information on it, I did a whole little write-up about some of the steps to build it, and again, some of the stuff I covered in this video over at my website, www.WilluDesign.com, and if you go to my channel page, you can see it there. So I should probably thank again Newegg.com for providing a lot of parts for this build. as well as expresshd.com for their support of the project. So that's it. Hopefully that answered some more questions, and maybe I'll have something else soon. I don't know, probably not. Thanks, guys.